Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder All Weather here. Hope everyone out there is enjoying your weekend. We're going to be tracking two powerful cross-country storm systems just over the next 7 days. So let's start off with the first one that's already impacting the West Coast that brought up to 10 inches of snowfall just the other day in and around the Portland, Oregon area. That is dive southbound into California, brought all the very cold temperatures and numerous flash flood watches and blizzard warnings in the mountain regions. They're tracking the snow in feet over there, and then flood warnings along the coastline into Los Angeles yesterday with inches of rain. Now that is still impacting the West Coast with all that colder air wrapped around this cold core system, but that is finally going to be on the move as we get deeper into the afternoon time frame, shifting all the way down into portions of Mexico there with some chillier rain, and that's going to be moving across the desert southwest. Further to the south, that Arctic air has sunk further south into Texas and much of the southern plains. They're just kind of getting a chilly, misty rain in those neck of the woods while we're waiting for this next vorticity that's going to be coming across. And as it does, it's going to bring some instability across the desert southwest there, but we're going to be watching a warm front that's going to be lifting up to the north, and as that does, that's going to tap into some instability with some of these higher dew points that are going to be rising up here in the Texas Panhandle by the time we head into Sunday night time frame, and there's where we could get some severe storms into your Sunday night, into the overnight time frame, into the Oklahoma area, portions of Kansas there. Those will shift off, weakening as they shift further eastbound, but there's also more instability that could pick back up again into portions of Tennessee and Kentucky going into your Monday time frame. So it does get pretty bumpy over the next couple of days with 2 rounds of severe storms. Let's take a look at the overall temperatures over the next 4 days. And like I mentioned, that Arctic deep shallow cold air has sunk a little bit further south. You can't underestimate shallow dense cold air, because it will definitely finally win, and it did in a big case, and it actually made it all the way down almost to the Texas border there, down there in Victoria with those chillier temperatures. But that's going to be the last of it, because these temperatures, this warm front is going to be rebounding. All these areas in green to the north, that is actually below 0 degrees, but you can actually see these temperatures start to rise, complements of a warm front heading into tomorrow. So as we go into tomorrow afternoon, those temperatures will rapidly rebound another 20 to 30 degrees in portions down here into the southern plains. And as it does, and as that storm system will be coming across the desert southwest, it's going to tap into some of that instability, and that's where we could see showers and thunderstorms and some severe storms starting to fire into the warm sector. So we got to be concerned about some severe storms heading up for them. But yeah, look at the temperatures kind of, more or less being on the rebound, because finally the Arctic air will be losing its luster going into Monday and Tuesday, and those should be actually fairly nice days once the severe storms kind of move out. So let's take a look at the next 48 hours on the HRRR model, and this is kind of give you a guidance of where this system down here in the West Coast is. So that's right now, it's dumping some heavier rains across Southern California, and the snow is cranking 2 to 4 inches per hour up there into the mountain regions of the Sierra Nevada. We also have some snow showers breaking out in northern portions of Pennsylvania, and then we just have these little pesky scattered mist and drizzle up down here off to the southwest flow. But as we take you through time, and as we go through your afternoon time frame, those temperatures really don't go much of anywhere in the southern plains, as that system will be really starting to wind itself up off the west coast and moving further inland. And as it does, it's bringing in the snow with it. So we could have some rain and even some snow in the mountain regions of Nevada there into portions of Flagstaff, with rain on the south side back into the Phoenix area. That'll be moving across, getting into portions of New Mexico by the time we head into Sunday morning time frame, as that system will be moving through. So by the time we get into your 6 o'clock time frame, that's where I think the storm should start to erupt up there into the Texas Panhandle, far western portions of Oklahoma, getting into Kansas there. And there's that window of opportunity where we could be looking at some dangerous supercell thunderstorms, if not tornadic thunderstorms, as we get into your 7 o'clock time frame up there in western Oklahoma. Further south into Texas, it doesn't look as much as a threat because they are going to be dealing with a kind of a strong capping inversion in place. So then it's more of a kind of a damaging wind threat and a weakening damaging wind threat as these continue to shift further east. But yeah, it's definitely going to be bumpy, from that 6 o'clock to say midnight time frame down here in portions of the southern plains getting into Kansas. That'll swing through portions of Iowa as we get into your 10 o'clock time frame on Sunday evening, as we just kind of have a squall line that will be moving across eastern portions of Oklahoma, portions of North Texas there, kind of weakening. You get those downburst winds, weakening downburst winds in those areas, but probably not severe at that point. And as we move through time, getting into the overnight time frame on Monday morning, unfortunately, we're going to have to be dealing with some more ice trying to form in portions of Minnesota, getting into central portions of Wisconsin there, as that storm system would be on the move. So let's take a look at the overall kind of tornado parameters with this particular setup. So like I mentioned, it doesn't really get going until we get deeper into the day on Sunday. There's your about 1 o'clock. So things start to get active. The dry line starts to get active down here in West Texas, but it's really about that 4 or 5, 6 o'clock time frame where we really have to be concerned about some low-level circulation mixing in, and that's when we could see this the air start to rotate at the surface. And yeah, basically around 7 o'clock time frame there in western Oklahoma, we've got a bona fide tornado threat for sure with this particular system. So definitely be on high alert. We're probably going to have a tornado watch issued within this sector along that time frame. But look like it's a short window. It's going to be a short window. So it might be from 6 to say 9 o'clock time frame that we really have to be concerned about those tornadic spin-ups. But beyond that, it's a rapid weakening phase as it kind of maybe transitions into more of a damaging wind threat and loses its tornado threat as these continue to push off deeper into the overnight hours. And as it gets into eastern Oklahoma and portions of North Texas, they're not going to be tornadic or maybe not even be severe at that point, as these will continue to wind down. So, but the winds are going to be cranking too. So let's take a look at the overall wind gusts during that same time frame. So as we move the needle and head through to your Sunday, their Sunday afternoon really start to explode, of course, portions of into the New Mexico area down here in eastern New Mexico. As this will continue to move across, you start getting into far west Texas, into the Texas Panhandle. Yeah, those wind gusts, that's not a misprint, guys. That's upwards to 60, if not 70 mile per hour. Is definitely not out of the question, along that active dry line as it explodes during the active time frame. But with those dew points, you're looking at, low 60s, mid 60s areas. But again, it's not going to last long. It's going to be more of a kind of a squall line that will really set up. And by the time we get into 10 o'clock, you can see it really starting to fade. As, of course, further south you live, down here into portions of Texas, it's not severe at that point. It's more or less your 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gust under severe limits as this will moving across into the overnight time frame. Maybe some higher wind gust as we push through into the Missouri area, into portions of Illinois, but I still don't think these will actually be on the severe side heading into the overnight time frame. So let's take a look at the overall NAM. This one might detect it a little bit better because this one actually goes out about 48, if not 84 hours over 4-day time span. So let's move the needle here of this overall mesoscale guidance. And as we move through time, you can see that convection blowing up across portions of the Texas Panhandle, moving through. You see that ice trying to form and up there in Wisconsin, getting into Michigan again. They're still having power outages from all that ice that dealt with the other day. Upwards to 400,000 customers are still without power down there into southern Michigan. So this is the last thing they want to see, is more ice trying to form on Monday morning, but that's exactly what they're going to get. And as we move through time, going through trying to end February there, the Northeast really hasn't had much of a winter, but I think this one could be possibly the biggest snowstorm of the season. Not just really the first one, but really the second one. The compounding effect of these two systems could lay down some bona fide snows in these regions So the first one that ends at the end of the month could lay down a blanket of snow across portions of northern New England here, especially north of, say, into the Boston area, north there into Vermont and New Hampshire, back into Maine. I think the second one's a little bit further south and definitely has more potency with it. And we'll go over that one here in a little bit. But yeah, the snow will be starting to wind down towards the end of the month as we get into your Tuesday time frame, really cranking out the snow up there in Maine as this system will start to wind down. But let's take a look at the overall big picture, what's happening, because we are looking at some transformation into the higher levels where we're starting to see the teleconnections starting to shift. Remember, we did have that sudden stratospheric warming event that took place on the 16th of February, and a lot of times it takes several weeks to filter down that colder air from the mid-latitudes. But we're starting to get long enough in the tooth now that we're getting into that 2 weeks since that event has actually happened. So we're starting to see the beginning stages of the transformation to a much colder look the deeper we get into your March time frame. So yeah, so here's the setup heading into March. So we'll be looking at another significant system kind of diving in. I think Alaska really turns cold. I mean, they'll be cold. You start to try to get some blocking mechanism forming just to their west there of Alaska. But what's indicative is that negative NAO that's really going to be starting to form up there in Greenland. That's going to be starting to take shape of that blocking setup, and that's what's going to cause these systems to slow down and have a little bit more intensity with it as well. So that second system that will transpire starting on the 1st will really start to dive down in towards the west coast there, diving into the Four Corners region. You can see this blue line. That's indicative of those colder temperatures. That's your 540 line that actually digs all the way down into Oklahoma and to North Texas there. So that's indication that those temperatures could be trying to get near freezing up at the higher levels, and how much of that's able to actually sink to the surface is kind of yet to be determined. But still, we've got a bona fide system that's going to be coming across, digging pretty far south there, down here into the southern plains, and that's the system that's really going to be winding itself up and heading up into the northeast. That could be the biggest storm of the season, heading into your, say, 3rd and your 4th time frame up into the northeast, as more blocking really will start to take shape. Whenever you starting to see these positives over the top, that will lower the pressures underneath and kind of lock in those colder temperatures as well. So I do feel like as we get deeper into March, as we head towards that 2nd week of March, we'll definitely start to see that colder temperatures last and longer. We won't see as much rapid rebounds of what we have been seeing, as of late. And here's the overall latest Canadian guidance too. It basically kind of has the same thing, has that trough really starting to dig down there in portions of Texas, diving in, and then really starting to wind up, heading up to the East Coast. So we'll be watching this storm system carefully, and that also has the blocking set up as well as we get towards, say, the 5th and 6th time frame. So here's the overall surface map on the latest GFS guidance. So we have that first system that comes through in the northeast. There's that ice that swings through portions of the upper Midwest, and then we've got more snow flying in the western regions, while we have that system coming across portions of the south there. There's that 540 line. There's the low pressure, right? So it tries to pull down more colder air further south, so you can't rule out some flakes trying to fly in Oklahoma and portions of North Texas there, but really starting to wind up portions of Missouri to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, places into Pennsylvania, really starting to wrap itself up, and that low pressure deepens down to a 976 millibar low pressure down there towards the 4th time frame. And that's the one that could really leave some fairly significant, decent snow amounts, and probably your biggest snowstorm of the season by the time we head into that time frame. And the overall Canadian guidance kind of implies the same thing. They have similar type of setups with that trough digging down a little bit further south. It brings the snow a little bit further south as well. So that's kind of hard to do in the month of March, because your overall averages continue to rise, but sometimes you can get a little bit of snow in the south portions into March time frame. And we've got several global models has been hinting at this for several days now, that we could be cold enough at the surface where some of that could transfer over to some snow by the time we get into that time frame there. But look at the GFS. It's pretty bullish on those two significant snowstorms up there in the Northeast. This would be easily the biggest snowstorm of the season if this does in fact hold together and come to fruition. So we do have some guidance saying, hey, we definitely have the possibility it could, with blocking trying to set up over the top, positive setting up over the top, slowing down of the systems. We had a negative SOI index. We got a weakening La Nina there. So we've got the pieces of the puzzle trying to come together to saying, hey, we might have a last gasp of winter still in the tank, saying, hey, winter's not over. And we've got maybe several more rounds of cold temperatures to come, and if not some bona fide snowstorms still to unfold across these regions as well. Here's the overall blend too. So even the blend is still hinting at pretty good snow still across the Intermountain West. Snow shifting further south into Kansas and to Oklahoma, maybe as far as south as North Texas with that system. That's the overall blend too, guys. And this is your snow totals up here in the Northeast into New England area. And these again would probably be your most significant storm of the season. So we'll be fine tuning this in the days to come. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.